Let's head up to our nation's capital now while the vice president was here and a few members of North Carolina's congressional delegation talking about vaccines and reopening schools. There's a debate about further COVID-19 relief, unemployment, stimulus checks, other things. Let's bring in our Washington Bureau reporter Kevin Fry with the latest on that. Still a lot to figure out, Kevin.
A lot, and really very little progress to show for it so far, Tim. If you want to keep in mind how things are going, Republicans themselves cannot agree on what exactly this deal should look like. Throw in the White House, more confusion, and then the Democrats and the Republicans are seemingly talking past each other in terms of the details of this plan. And so the end result is very little progress at this point. One of the major sticking points is this unemployment benefit insurance, the enhancement from the federal level. It's been $600 a week for a while now. House Democrats have been pushing to extend that further, while the Republican plan calls for at least temporarily dropping it down to $200 a week. Part of the reason for that is Republicans argue that small businesses, for example, need assistance. They need to have the workers have an incentive to actually come back on the payroll, come back to work. Here's something that we heard from Mark Walker today.
The most calls that we had over the last 3 to 4 months was not people who were, even though there are people struggling with COVID, there are people struggling with many issues. It was from small businesses say, can you modify this? A lot of them said do away with it, but can you at least modify this where the employee comes back to work now that we're reopened?
Now, of course, Democrats say that that $200 a week level is just simply not acceptable. It's not feasible for a family that is dealing with this ongoing pandemic. So that is just one example of a sticking point. There's disagreement over aids for states and whether or not they should get additional assistance for state and local governments that are seeing bleeding out revenue because of the shutdowns across the country. So those are just two of the sticking points. Expect those to be extrapolated again further over the next few days. And there are questions. Could they do a temporary extension, for example, for just unemployment insurance? That doesn't seem to be something the Democrats want to accept. In short, very little progress. It is worth noting that Republicans just rolled out their plan this week. Democrats introduced their bill several months ago, and so there is some consternation as to why they are waiting until the very last minute to get all this done. Here's what G.K. Butterfield told me.
It has been sitting on the desk of Senator McConnell. It has been accumulating dust. It now needs to be put front and center. He waited too long, but that's in the past. We now need to get serious this week and pass legislation that will protect the American people.
Now, Senator Thom Tillis spoke to reporters on Capitol Hill this week saying that they need a deal fairly soon. He also said that they need to acknowledge that this virus is going to stick around a lot longer than they thought it was when the last major aid package was passed a couple months ago, Tim.
All right, a lot to consider and little time to figure it out for those who are unemployed.